Okay, so we're going to have a discussion this morning about the EAP scheme at Queen's, which is the Elite Athlete Programme. And I'm joined this morning by Aidan O'Rourke again, the Performance Sport Manager at Queen's, and Hugh Campbell, who is contracted to support the performance athletes at Queen's. He's also a senior lecturer at University of Ulster and has a very storied past working with athletes across a range of sports. Aidan, of course, a former All-Ireland winner, former All-Star, and has been working at Queen's for best part of 10 years. Longer than 10 years now, Aidan, is it?
No, it's actually 9, I think.
9, so it was close enough.
9, 10, yep.
So how's this morning, chaps?
Yeah, what day of the week is it?
Whatever day.
This groundhog experience.
Yes, yeah. The days do tend to run into each other a little bit.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks, Connor. Thank you.
Good. Hugh, I wonder if I might just start by asking a few questions about your own background. So you've worked, as I said, across a range of sports. Maybe you could just fill us in about how you got involved in working with athletes. Your pathway in was through middle distance running. Is that right?
Yeah. When you said storied past, that just means you've been around a long time. I'm into my 5th decade of, if I would say, involvement in sport at a serious competitive level. So I have been around a long time, and initially as a schoolboy I fell in love with running and middle distance running and fell into a very good group. I probably fell in love with a sport that I was certainly least equipped to deal with physically. I was a very average runner, but I found a niche for myself in coaching and had some good runners that I worked with who were successful, and on the back of their success, you start to get a bit of a reputation as being a coach. And one thing has led to another, and I've had a very interesting meandering journey. I'd say 12 years at a good level of involvement in middle distance running, 10 years in the Irish League as a trainer at Glentoran Football Club. That's a whole other story about how that came about. And I first met Aidan in 2002 when I did a workshop with the Armagh football team, just looking at issues around, the importance of esprit de corps in affecting team performance. And that one-day workshop led to a season-long involvement, and I had the excitement and the privilege of watching Aidan and his teammates achieve all Ireland success, first time in Armagh's history, first and only time in 2002. And Aidan, we also had the experience of working together the following year, where Armagh got back to an All-Ireland final and got beaten by their rivals Tyrone. So my connection with Aidan goes back to those 2 years in particular. Would be the start of our own relationship.
I notice you have the 2 iconic images of 2002 on the wall behind you there, the jersey and the Muhammad Ali portrait. Maybe I suppose a lot of people do know a little bit about that story, but maybe you would fill us in.
You can't. Can you see the books as well? They're all children's books, by the way, just in case you're wondering. There's nothing academic there.
I thought that was a poster. Is that not a poster?
With
the books on it.
The story about 12 years ago, I was away on a work trip and went into an art gallery, and that Muhammad Ali print was on sale by some trendy up and coming artist, and I bought it with a credit card and didn't tell Jackie, my wife, how much it cost. She still doesn't know, and I'm not going to tell you because I'd be embarrassed to say. But I bought it. The jersey is a more interesting story. I sent that jersey to Muhammad Ali as a present in 2002, and a couple of months later, to my surprise, it was posted back with his signature on it. And I actually got around to framing it last year and stuck it on the wall beside the print. I don't know why he sent it back. He obviously, him or whoever else in his entourage at that time didn't think he wanted it in his mantelpiece. So it's a prized possession. I feel really lucky to have it.
Aidan, so Hugh's obviously outlined that your relationship together goes back quite a long time now, and obviously Hugh is very essential to, I suppose, that kind of provision that we offer athletes at Queen's, which is all about kind of taking the next step, and it's a service that we that young athletes may not necessarily have access to when they're developing up to the age of 17, 18. So what sort of value does Hugh bring to Queen's and to our offering to athletes?
Yeah, I suppose what Hugh does encapsulates what we try to do for athletes across all our performance programs, whether that's within the academy or at the top end, which is with the elite athlete program, in that they come to us sort of as rough diamonds. Anybody who's involved in our performance programs has a certain amount of ability, a certain amount of raw ability, and the capacity to improve. And what we try and teach them, and Hugh takes the lead on this, are maybe the softer skills around how to hone all of that, and how to fine tune those raw ingredients and try and pull them together. So Hugh works in a range of areas. I mean, he can elaborate on this himself for you, but it can be as day to day as time management, study plans, and then it goes right through into the performance side of things, using visualization and imagery, basics of goal setting, and really bringing all of that into not just performance and from a competition perspective, but building that into your everyday habits, and building a profile for yourself that enables you to live an athlete lifestyle, which is difficult in our environment, because most students come to Queen's to get a world-class education, and that is demanding. Some of them are studying actuary and medicine, and you quite often find that a lot of our athletes are on high demand courses, that they're high flyers in various aspects of their life, and striking the balance that all of that entails. Hugh is fundamental in helping them achieve all of that.
And Hugh, what are some of the skills then that people can take from those sessions that students would take with you, and I suppose cultivate into their life and their performance sport after they leave Queen's?
Yeah, maybe might go in a different direction here for a moment. Bit uneasy about being. I think I'm just a coach, and at the centre of this are athletes and their own personal coaches. I think the real story in Queen's sport is around those individuals and the way that they combine to produce some amazing results in their respective sports. For me, the key thing is an athlete is a person, and when you're working with student athletes, you're working with young people, and so you've got to relate to them as, first of all, they're students. So there's the academic identity. What is the course they're doing? Why does that course matter? Many of them have a sense of vocation, or they're trying to figure out what their vocation is going to be post-degree. So part of the relationship is to understand and lean into and show that you're interested in that part of their life, because it's the reason why they've come to Queen's, is to study. Then there's your sport and identity, and the people in the elite athlete program are very serious sportsmen and women. By definition, you can't get into the program, and maybe Aidan will say a bit about the criteria, but you can't get into it unless you're at a very high standard in your sport, and those standards are very explicit. So in many instances, that means you're a representative player. You played for your national governing body, whether that's the Northern Irish, Irish, or Great British team standard. So they're very good at sport. So you've got the academic identity, the sporting identity, and they're young people, and they're like all of us. They're trying to make sense out of life, and lives, even for students, have ups and downs. They have setbacks. They've got opportunities. Sometimes the wind is on their back and life is going really well, and then something unforeseen happens, whether it's an injury in sport or a personal crisis can happen in anyone's life. And so I suppose, Connor, for me, you're in that whole narrative is what you step into when you are trying to support someone to go to where they want to go in life. I hope that does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, it was a good answer. Yeah. So I suppose we'll just take a step back and just look at a sort of a wider sense of the elite athlete program. So what are the origins of the program, and where has it evolved from in Queen's? What went before it, and where are we now with the program?
I suppose like you, there's been a storied journey with supporting performance athletes and teams at Queen's. And listen, there's a great rich tradition within a lot of our sports at Queen's, reaching back a century or more, and there has always been performance and achievement, and uh, you know, just because we're trying to nurture and support all of that doesn't mean it didn't happen before. Our sports clubs have producing brilliant athletes and players and teams for decades, and long may that continue. The academy scheme was probably the first serious step for Queen Sport in terms of trying to see what way we could reinforce what was already happening with brilliant volunteers and coaches within clubs. And we have 5 priority sports at the moment. That's rugby, soccer, hockey, rowing and Gaelic games. And we have full-time staff in those areas to support the coaching, administration, and general development of both those sports. So each of those sports have an academy which provides services and scholarships and a support network for players and athletes within those 5 sports. We have an additional support area, which is our sports bursary scheme, which is for people who are at a very good level beyond our 5 priority sports. And then sitting on top of all of that, I think we're in year 6 of coming into year 7 of the elite athlete program. So Queen's took the leap to support athletes who are at an extremely high level and pursuing their academic dreams here at the university about 6 or 7 years ago. And at the moment it started much smaller, but at the moment we have 20 places on that scheme each year. And myself and you are in the thick of, at the moment, review interviews for those athletes coming to the end of the 1920 year. And next week we're into interviews for intake in September, depending on what the academic year looks like, of course.
And so since you're in the midst of all that, what are some of the deciding factors? So obviously you're comparing athletes across a whole range of sports. So as you mentioned, even just within the 5 priority sports, there's a range of differences between, for example, can someone represent their country or just represent their county? How do you differentiate between athletes who are all working at a very high level but in different sports?
Yeah, and that is a challenge. We are constantly reviewing our criteria and benchmarks and the targets we set for athletes across different sports, and the criteria is different in each sport. It's on our website, queensport.com. It is laid out, so the criteria for the incoming year can be found there if anyone's interested in it. But it does vary across sports because the nature of each of the sports are different, and where the top of those sports is different also. Some of them are Olympic sports, and allow for achievement in that direction. Some of them, for example, Gaelic games, Indigenous game here, national level is the very top level there. So what we're looking to encapsulate is we support student athletes who are achieving at a national or international level within their sport. And there's also provision then for acknowledging and engaging with exceptional potential as well. And that is usually means school leaver with exceptional potential who may have achieved potentially nationally or internationally at a school level, but we feel would have an exceptional potential to go on and do that when they come to university as well. So it's kind of a broad answer, but the specifics are different within each sport. But we try and support the best and those with the best potential as best we can.
Yeah, I think Conor, if I could add something too, I think one of the really important and attractive features of the scheme has been the way it's been open to athletes who are pursuing individual sports. So we've had a very good judo player on the scheme in the past. I'm thinking also, for example, of Jessica Ross in golf, who was on the EAP for several years, international golfer, has the potential to have a professional career. Ewan McAteer currently on the scheme, who's a gymnast, first ever gymnast, and also over the last year we've had our first ever track cyclist, a young guy from Mid Ulster called Harvey Barnes. So I think the fact that the scheme is open to people in those sports that are outside the kind of the the big team sports is a very important distinguished feature of the whole scheme.
So Hugh, once these athletes arrive at Queen's, and some will enroll in the EAP scheme in their first year, and others may join at subsequent years, what are some of the challenges that are unique to competition at varsities level that you just don't get anywhere else?
I would say for most of the athletes, the varsity competition is actually it's the pinnacle of university sport, but for most of them, it's a stepping stone into international competition within their competitive year. So, for example, if you look at the hockey team this year with 5 female athletes playing hockey for Queens, but they're also all in international hockey. So they've been able to balance the importance of winning for their club, for Queens, and chasing honours in their league system, with also pursuing a career as an international player playing for their country. So I think that that capacity to be able to operate effectively in different domains and understand that actually, while it's obviously really important for universities and for many student sportsmen and women to win for example, your British or your Irish university championships, for most of our EAPs, that's actually a stepping stone into higher competition within the same year. I think, would that be fair to say, Aidan?
Yeah, I think across the board that's probably true. And again, it depends on the sport, certainly any of our athletes who are involved in individual sports, that would be the case. They would be expected probably to medal at Irish universities, for example, or Bucks, but are competing then at open international level probably later in the season. Team sports are slightly different because the again, varsity competition exists, for example, for our rugby team, but they compete in the All Ireland League. So that would be the priority. So certainly varsity competition is part of it, but as Hugh says, it's one element of the season that probably leads to something larger for each of the athletes. And just to bring it back to your original question, the big pressure that's different for our athletes is the fact that they're juggling all of that. They have external coaches from other teams who need their focus and need their attention at certain times, and that will be a priority at time. But above all else, and we put a huge amount of emphasis on this, they're here to get an education first and foremost. So that is the big challenge, because most of them are living the lifestyle of a professional athlete, and the student lifestyle by and large allows that, from a recovery and flexibility perspective. But there are certain times a year in every course that require serious attention academically, and sport has to be put to one side or certainly diminished at times.
So that's maybe a good way to delve into some of the specifics of what a student is offered if they receive a place on the Elite Athlete Programme. So there's bursaries available, but there's also a range of other support and help behind the scenes. So maybe you could just outline some of those.
Yeah, focusing on the Elite Athlete Programme, we have 2 tiers of support, but essentially in terms of the services that the athletes receive, it doesn't matter what tier they are on. For me, one of the most important elements of it is the university's overall academic flexibility policy, which was put in place around the same time as the Elite Athlete Programme started, which empowers the academic side of the university to support the students as they pursue their sporting dreams as well. So that allows flexibility where required. We don't encourage it, but where required, around things like coursework deadlines, exams if they clash with competition, maybe a wee bit longer on dissertations, that type of thing, which really just supports the students to do all of the things they want to do. That's very important, because it's difficult in terms of grades to get the Queens, but once you're here, the support academically is very, very good, probably on a par with any other institution, certainly on this island. The other support services are the things that you would expect. When you get the full support, attention, mentoring of all of our staff. A lot of that would be led by Hugh, obviously, and myself. The physio support through Shane McAleer, and Kingsbridge Healthcare, S&C one-to-one on a one-to-one basis through our S&C coach, who's Mike McGurn, who has an extremely has great experience across a diverse range of sports as well, and that's very important for the students. If you look at the window that they're in here, 18 to 22, 23 in terms of their development, so working with Mike is very important, and a range of other support services then as required, things like nutrition, etc., that any athlete would need. So yeah, there are scholarship obviously up to £5,000 involved as well. But it's the people who are involved around the programme, creating the environment and support network around the athletes that for us really make the difference.
I think Conor, I would probably reframe the question from my seat and be asking an athlete, what are you bringing? What do you bring to this? I mean, the services that Aidan outlined, most athletes have to access those, for example, early morning, evening, and weekend, partly because of the availability of people like myself, and also because of the demand of their own courses. Many students are on courses that are very heavily timetabled, so they don't have a lot of free time during the day. So what do you bring? And you have to have a hunger to get the most out of those services and be open-minded to what they might mean and how they could represent a change up in your approach to sport. And also, what are you dreaming of doing? Because if an athlete, or if Queen's framed this as it's a material package, you're getting extra money, and that obviously has an immediate sense of attraction because it's so tangible. I think, like, if you defined it in that way, the narrowness of that restricts what actually can be achieved through the scheme. What are you dreaming of doing? What's that going to take? And actually, for me, the material benefits are secondary to that kind of hunger and drive that you're looking to foster or nurture inside athletes themselves.
And those are all questions you, of course, asked in the AIM series, which is an important part of what we offer the elite athletes as well. And we've actually made those conversations, I suppose, available online freely to everybody. So you can check below in our Facebook feed if you want to see Hugh talk more about some of those concepts and about challenging yourself and what you want to achieve yourself. I suppose we should say that all of this is bookended and supported by Dale Farm and a partnership between Dale Farm and the university. Aidan, maybe you'd like to say something about the support that Dale Farm bring to the programme?
Yeah, over the course of the last couple of years, Dale Farm support has been invaluable for us, raising the bar in terms of the support that we can give the athletes within the scheme. They sponsor the Elite Athlete Programme. We also sponsor Gaelic football, men's and women's, and that partnership has been, and the first and foremost, it brings in resources and allows us to support the students while they study and compete. But that partnership has been much more than that. They're very visible, very supportive partner, and some very simple, practical things. They support events with the protein milk has been invaluable for recovery. I mean, Mike McGurn's gym, where Hugh alluded to earlier, vast majority of the work is done early morning. So you could have students coming out of Mike's gym up at Upper Malone at 7:30 in the morning, trying to make their way to the NBC or to wherever their class is, and they might have a banana with them, but they're clinging to their strawberry or chocolate protein milk, and that sustains them until snack time around 11. So that type of practical support has been very good, and Dale Farm have been very good at raising the standards in terms of our facilities and preparation for our teams. So it's been a very good partnership.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to see more about what Dale Farm are doing to support athletes, not just within Queen's but across Ulster, you can go to at Dale Farm Protein on Instagram, and you can see some of the videos that they put together, some really useful stuff for preparing meals for yourself and for how to keep active and healthy during the lockdown period. So we're coming towards the end here. I suppose just like to ask you about some of the highlights that you've experienced with students who've been on the programme. Maybe Hugh, if I could ask you first, are there any athletes either this year or in years gone past that kind of maybe stand out, or particular achievements which you think were really noteworthy?
Gosh, I could probably talk for 10, 20 minutes about about memories. You've got some amazing team performances that where you've had EAPs contributing to that. Then you've got individual achievement. But I'll give you, I'll tell you one that comes to mind right away, and this may be an odd one. About 4 years ago, we had a rower called Tiernan Oliver, and Tiernan was an Irish international, as talented a rower as we've had at Queens, and we have had and do have some exceptional rowers, and people will know about Phil Doyle and his achievements. Well, Tiernan was a contemporary of Phil's, and probably I would say was a pathfinder. He was on the EAP scheme before Phil was, and about 4 years ago, his appendix burst midwinter. He disappeared for a few months. He was very seriously ill, and I can remember the first day I met him when he got back on his feet, and he had to introduce himself to me in the reception area of the PEC. I didn't recognise him. He'd lost about 3 stone in weight, and as you know, even for a heavyweight rower, I mean that's potentially career ending, that type of setback. And within the 18 months, he was back in an Irish boat. And stories like that for me are, as much as winning a medal, are a reflection of something I think is at the core of this in the value system that we talk about, which is around resilience. Just in life, you're going to have setbacks. As I say, you're going to be bent, but when you're bent, you spring back. And there in that story of Tiernan, I think you see qualities and characteristics that we think are very important, and we want to remind our athletes of and foster in them. Courage, not quitting, keeping going. Things will go against you. You can come back from them, and how foundation your own attitude is. Now, people around you can support you, of course, and I think Kieran got great support from people around him in Queens and in his family. But that does not replace the importance of your own voice and your own drive and your own motivation and your own belief and being clear about what you want and going and getting it. So that's one story, Aidan.
Yeah, I think from an overall perspective, I think we're acutely aware that we feature at a very defined period in these athletes' careers. They come to us typically 18 to 22, 23, depending on whatever course they're studying on. And a big part of what we understand our role is to prepare them for what comes after. Also, build a foundation, build habits, patterns in their lifestyle that allows them to really excel when they get into that sweet spot, which often is after they graduate. But success stories have been many. This year, just the highlights of this year: Harvey Barnes, track cyclist, bronze in exalted company at Bucks. Conal Kirk, gold medal at Irish universities, and then the probably the biggest achievement this year is the ladies hockey team winning the Ulster Premier League, backbone by five of the hockey girls on the elite athlete program. So those stories are always there, but it's not, as she says, it's not necessarily always the people holding up the medals that maybe is where the fruit of the work is. There's a lot of work goes in, probably unseen, that only the athlete maybe sees the benefit of, and a lot of our work is not necessarily about this season or even next season. It's about what we can input in terms of people shaping their careers.
Yeah, something just in the area that you made me think about, and I'm not sure that the athletes understand sometimes how much inspiration the staff derive from them. Sometimes you get this idea, coaches inspire and direct and guide, and I think you look at Simon Bell's achievements with hockey and where he's brought hockey in Queens. It's just an amazing record, and he's one of a whole bunch of coaches that you could cite. But the athletes themselves are inspirational. I'm thinking, for example, of in this lockdown, our first gymnast ever, Ewan McAteer. The sport, I used to hide from gymnastics in school when they used to make you compulsory run up to a horse and try to, fall over it. It terrified. And Ewan's posted a few videos of training in the house, using your kitchen benches as a as a replacement for parallel bars, and it's really exciting and uplifting when you see what athletes can do and how they can adapt, and just also you just see talent. I see talent I didn't have as a performer ever, and that is I find that uplifting. I get something from that. They may not understand that.
I think that's a great note to round off the conversation, unless I've missed anything pertinent that we should add, but I think we covered everything there.
What about the rest of my life story? And Aidan's achievements.
Well, you're working on your memoirs, obviously.
It is funny, Conor, you know, with young athletes, like Aidan's background, obviously, in Gaelic football, and there's been a good few footballers through the EAP scheme, maybe 8 or 9 over the last 5 or 6 years. But it is funny, you know, what sport does is, for all its heritage, it reminds you that it's always about what's happening now and what's about to happen. And it's sometimes I'm sitting listening to an athlete explaining something to Aidan, and I'm thinking, you have no idea the road that man's been down. He was in your shoes and then went on and went on. And but it's kind of humbling because it reminds you that it is about now and what happens next. It's important to, you know, appreciate history and tradition, and no one likes a yarn better than me, and, you know, a bit of a reminisce. But EAP is all about now and what's coming next, and that's what sport's about. Maybe that's what largely life is about. But
yeah.
Anyway, got all philosophical. Sorry about that.
Well, I suppose we'll look forward to seeing what the next cohort achieve when they arrive in September, in whatever shape or form that eventually takes. And we'll look forward to seeing what achievements they can aspire to in the now, in the autumn. So thanks very much for joining me this morning, folks, and I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, Conor.
Later, guys. Take care.